All right. Hey guys, welcome to the Daily Word Bible Study, a plain and simple book by book, chapter by chapter, and verse by verse study through the entire Bible. Currently, we are in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 6. And we're reading Luke's account of Jesus' Sermon on the Mount, which is slightly different because he doesn't include, Matthew's account, if you remember, within chapters 5, 6, and 7. So Luke's account is only going to be limited to chapter 6, but he will include other aspects of the teaching and other events. Um, so as we get to this, again, this is Jesus' criteria for being his disciples. And this is an important part, an important point, because we could ask the question, why are we here? Think about this. Why are we here on earth? With all of the glorious promises that God has given us in Christ, and we have some glorious promises, being sons of God, heirs of God, joint heirs with Jesus Christ. We're going to have a glorified body like that of the body of the resurrected Christ. We are members of God's household. So the eternity is just unimaginable for us, the kindness of God's grace that he's going to pour out upon us. Okay, so why not just get saved and then go to heaven? In other words, if we stop and think about it, we could avoid all of the evils of the world. So why does God allow us to face certain situations, whether good or bad, to be in certain predicaments, situations? So let's get to it, and we will see why God allows that. I'm going to pick it up at verse number 27, where we talked about, excuse me, if you remember, we this is sort of what's called the Beatitudes. And then last time, and I know I had to take a couple of days off, but last time we talked about the idea of why did Jesus, when he says, if one hits you on the cheek, what did he mean by that? And this kind of goes to the greater reason why Jesus is telling us, look at verse 27. But I say to you, listen, love your enemies, do what is good to those who hate you. So when you look at that statement there, other cultures, other ideologies will say, don't love. There are Christians that even try to, to me, kind of do a sneak around. For example, you hear people say, well, I'll forgive, but I won't forget. Now, do you really think God is not on to your true motives there? You're truly not forgiving is what that comes down to. Because remember, God's standard for forgiveness is you forgive as he forgave you. So you just turn around and apply that same principle. But again, why? Why does God kind of demand this of us? And again, the quick answer is we are here to be a light. That's it. So when someone curses us out, when someone does us wrong, it gives an opportunity for people to watch us. God shines the light, our light. When Jesus said, let your light shine before men. Let your light shine before men. So if we're doing that, people watch us. Their eyes are on us. And the question is, what are they seeing? See, I'm kind of piggybacking back on Matthew's, um, take on the Sermon on the Mount. He says, let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. So that's the why. So he says, but I say to you, listen, love your enemies. Do what is good to those who hate you. Bless those that curse you. Pray for those who mistreat you. Right? So that's, sometimes people may find that hard because you want to retaliate. In some kind of way, you want to retaliate. Instead, he says, do the exact opposite. Show them love to those who do good. And I'm going to tell you, in some cases, that can certainly be a hard road to go. And what's interesting, because now I'll give you kind of a real life, real time example. A real time example. Sometimes we will see this, and I'm thinking about a particular case where a white police officer went into a black man's home. And as the story goes, she gets off work, and according to her statement, she mistaken the floor. Now, I can somewhat understand that. I've worked in a hotel, and I can tell you, working in a hotel, all the floors look the same, except you will see room 432, and then you go to the fifth floor, room 532. Okay, so that's the difference. But if you're not paying attention, all the rooms look alike. And I've walked into rooms, to do a call, and I think to myself, well, wait, there's nothing wrong here. Then come out, oh, I'm on the wrong floor, right? I've done it with my car, right? Walked up to a car that's that model is my car, pulled on the handle, and I got no response. I got the sensor that my key, right, that unlocks and does it. Come to find out, it's the wrong. And how you tell, because what's in my car it's usually a lot different than what somebody else's car. And the same thing you had with, so this white police officer, and by the way, remember, she's the police officer. She goes up to a door, she gets off at the elevator. I could even understand that. Then she goes to the room. Now watch this, and this is where her story falls apart. I believe there was a doormat on this door, whereas there's not a doormat at her house, or vice versa. Her key didn't work. How did she get in? Now here's my point. She in some kind of way gets into the house. The guy is sitting up, relaxing, eating ice cream. In fact, he's relaxing because this is his home. He's in his underwear, sitting up, chilling. And then she shoots him because she said she thought he was a burglar. Now think about that. A burglar eating ice cream in his underwear. So she shoots him and kills him. She goes to trial. Actually, she's in jail now. And then you get to the sentencing. And you see she is remorseful, right? And there are some other things I could get into. I just want to kind of focus on the relatives who say, I forgive you. I forgive you. And they got criticized for that. They got criticized for expressing that forgiveness. Now, and the reason why is because if you see the other side of the argument, it would be something like, we always have to forgive. When do the white people, have to pay for their, pay for their crimes and stuff? In fact, she did, because she was convicted and then was sentenced to a number of years in jail. Now, but the reason why I say that, because in this case, the people started criticizing the relatives who forgave her. So they were the victims. They lost their loved ones. They were the victims. So the question is, was it right? Or, I'm not dealing with the right and wrong, because notice what Jesus says right here: love your enemies. Do good to those who hate you. Bless those who curse you. Now, and let me just say this. This is doing the Roman era, the Roman Empire, in which, Israel was subject to their laws. So in other words, nothing that Jesus is commanding would go against the Roman laws. In other words, he's not telling you to violate the Roman law. So for example, if a person committed a crime, then what he's not saying is that, and they had to face the Roman law, he's not telling you to bypass that. And it would be the same in this case, that Jesus is not telling us to bypass the law of the land. And in a lot of cases too, so the forgiveness part had nothing to do with the law part. The law was going to be the law. But people did criticize them. People did criticize them. And then if you also go to the place of how did that person feel? How should they feel? How should they feel about this idea? How should they feel? And notice what Jesus says: love your enemies. He's going to get to forgive in a moment. So he says, but I say to you, listen, love your enemies, do good, do what is good to those that hate you. And he's going to give some examples too of that. Do good. But at the same time, let me kind of insert this, what he's not telling you to do. Like if you were to have a loved one, because a lot of times we're more forgiving with loved ones, but let's just say a person steals from you, a neighbor, right? Let's say a neighbor steals from you. You let them into their home. Maybe, they do some work in your home, but then they steal money from you, or they steal something valuable to pawn it. Maybe they're on drugs or something like that. Now, what is Jesus saying here? Forgive them without a doubt, right? Forgive them. Do good to them. Maybe you don't press charges. Maybe you don't call the police. But now here is the thing. Should you then put them in a place of trust? Okay? And so this here starts with how you view God's love and forgiveness for this person. So the value of it is, I'm going to forgive you. But does that mean you put them in a trust to steal again? To take valuables again? In other words, I think you could have an honest heart and say, I forgive this person, but I'm not going to trust you alone. See, I'm not going to trust you alone, because if you have not shown fruits of repentance, no, I'm not going to trust that. All right. Verse 28, bless those that curse you, pray for those who mistreat you. If anyone wants to hit you on your cheek, offer the other also. If anyone takes away your coat, don't hold back your shirt either. Give to everyone who asks you, and from the one who takes your things, don't ask for them back. Now again, here's another interesting thing. Give to everyone who asks you. Again, keep this in mind. These are general statements. So let's talk about wisdom now. If anyone comes to you, they come and say, can you loan me money? Now, this is kind of a good one here. Churches would be wise. They have what's called benevolent funds, some churches, right? And some people will see, they will see, or at least look from a predatory perspective, how they could get money from the church. Here's what I want to say. By the way, the reason why I can say this here, that when you hear what Jesus is saying in a general statement, now you get down to the wisdom. So for example, here's how Jesus gets down to the wisdom. In fact, let me show you 1 Timothy chapter 5. 1 Timothy chapter 5. So now you have Paul giving instruction to, Paul is giving instruction to how to care for widows. Notice what he says right there. Do not rebuke an older man. No, let me verse 3. He says, support widows who are genuinely widows. Okay? So guess it. Anyone who wants to be, and they had a system where the church would care for a destitute widow. Husbands died, there's no family around, they're poor. They did not have welfare systems, social security systems, and all that. So now, guess what? The church then took it upon themselves to care for the widows. But then you have people that were like, oh, free money. In other words, human nature doesn't change. And so he says, support widows who are genuinely widows. Now, how do you know that? He said, but if any widow has children or grandchildren, they must learn to practice godliness towards their own family first, and to repay their parents, for this pleases God. In other words, let them. If a person comes to you and they're destitute, ask the question. You got family? Go to them first. He says the real widow is left all alone. She has put her hope in God, continues night and day in her petitions and prayers. However, get this, she who is self-indulgent is dead even while she lives. Command this also, so that they won't be blamed. But if anyone does not provide for his own, that is his own household, he has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever. In other words, again, let that be the first step. The first step, go to your homes, check it out. Then he says no widow should be placed in official support list unless she is at least 60 years old, has been the wife of one husband, and is well known for good works. That is, if she has brought up children, shown hospitality, washed the saints' feet, helped the afflicted, and devoted herself to every good work, but refused to enroll younger widows, for when they are drawn away from Christ by desire, they want to marry, and will therefore receive condemnations because they have renounced their original pledge. At the same time, also they learn to be idle, going from house to house. They are not only idle, but gossipers, busybodies, saying things they shouldn't. Therefore, I want younger women to marry, have children, manage household. Okay, I'll stop there. I think you get the point. So what he is saying is to have wisdom. He's setting wisdom to a lot of these general commands. In other words, you just can't have an open blanket. Give to everyone that asks, because you would be broke if that was the case. I'll say this too. A lot of times when I'm walking down the street and I'll see a person that says they're homeless, do I give or not? And I'll deal with that next time. Don't forget to like and share this video, subscribe to BP, the Bible Perspective. And as always, if you have a thought, a comment, add it to the comment section below. All comments are welcome. And I'll see you in the next study.